after pushing, David came out, and he was facing my right side. And I didn't know that he should have come out, and so when Susan, the midwife, put her hand underneath his head, he grabbed her, and so she had to pull his hand out, and that left me with a few stitches, but he came rushing out with, as the water broke, his head came out, and Frank handed him to me with his sack still on him. He was perfectly clean, and where did I leave off? He was 8 pounds, 5.5 ounces, and 22 inches. And he latched immediately. So they checked for tongue tie. They told me there was no tongue tie. We went home, and we went home a few hours later. A lactation consultant came the next day, and she was a nurse also, to check everything. And she said that everything was fine. And for those of you who don't know what a tongue tie is, it's when the part underneath the tongue is attached to the tongue, so that you don't have very much leverage. So I was reassured that everything was fine. I had learned about tongue ties when I came to this event last year, so I was, knew all about it and made sure that they checked. Nursing was heinously painful. It was worse than labor, and I didn't know what to do, so I was told to use nipple shields. I had nipple shields. I had everything because I was fully prepared for nursing issues. So I took him to the pediatrician. No tongue tie. Everything was great. At 4 weeks, we started noticing that David was looking a little thin. And so we started to get concerned, and I went to a nursing support group, women that nurse together, and there's a lactation consultant, and it was a heinous experience. She told me that I wasn't producing enough milk, that I needed to start immediately supplementing my baby with formula, and that, he was a sleepy baby, all these things that weren't true, that she just met me, but I was really upset and just left and was like, forget her, I'm doing something else. So we talked about it, and I let one of my mama friends that I had met in Birthing from Within, Vicki Beamler, who's here, know about my problem, and she started pumping and giving me her milk for David because she knew how dedicated I was to breastfeeding, and the thought of giving him formula was just horrible for both of us. So I found La Leche League, which, is not hard to find, but I went to one of their meetings, and they were amazing, and they told me it sounds like he has a posterior tongue tie. They gave me a list of lactation consultants, and then I got another list of lactation consultants from another midwife that I had at Vestar, Brooke Ray, and I called Ann Russell, is her name. She wanted to be here, but she's helping another mom. She came to my house and spent 4 hours with David and I just studying his face, his tongue, his latch, everything, and confirmed our suspicions that he had a posterior tongue tie, and gave us a list of options that I could pump and give him milk, which she brought a hospital-grade pump for me to start using, or we could take him to a list of different doctors that perform a procedure that cuts that part underneath the tongue. David was so... He's a titty man, so he was always, never wanted a bottle. He still will always want to breastfeed over a bottle, and so I did not think that it would be an issue like I've heard from other babies that if they have that procedure, then they don't want to nurse afterwards. So the next day we took him to an ear, nose, and throat specialist, Dr. Ochi in Encinitas, and we chose him because he uses acupuncture while he does the procedure. It's like a 10-second procedure, but it helps with some of the pain. And Anne met us there, the lactation consultant, to hold David for me, and she brought a homeopathic tincture that we could give David and myself to help calm both of us and to help with pain over the next few days. They did the procedure, and he latched immediately. It was amazing, and that night we had a scale so I could see exactly how much he was getting with each nursing session, and he was getting double by that evening, and so then the next challenge was getting my milk supply back up because it had decreased so much. So I was pumping 15 times a day, and I'm very fortunate to have a husband that mostly works at home, so I could say hold the baby for 5-10 minutes while I pump. And it took about 2 months to get my milk supply back up, and I got to a point that I just couldn't pump anymore. And he was doing fine, but I didn't realize that he could still eat a little bit more, so we found a recipe of goat's milk formula, so that's what he's eating right now. He gets about 1 bottle a day of goat's milk formula. It was a difficult thing to reconcile for me, but we're significantly better than we were to begin with. And so once we got all that figured out, I was still having some pain on the right side when he was nursing. And so I talked to Ann about it, and I had also noticed that the frontal bone, the cranial bone right here, was slightly raised, his left side, and that was the side that was down that he had his hand up against when he came out. So I had read about craniosacral, I knew all about it, and I went to Bridget Shelf, a craniosacral therapist in Solana Beach, and my suspicions were confirmed that he did have a slightly manipulated cranial bone, and it was pulling on the inside of his mouth. So 6 sessions and good as new. So we finally got all of that behind us, and hindsight, all these things I feel like I should have seen. I was having mastitis issues, and it was because my breasts weren't being drained. But one of the great resources I had was my fabulous acupuncturist, and so she really helped to get my breast health back on track, and it was rough. But one treatment, and I was in much better shape. So then, once we got nursing back on track, it was time to get me back together, and I guess my pelvis was all out of whack too after birth, and I was having a lot of pain. Unfortunately, my mother, as luck would have it, met Dr. Pia Martin in Dallas at a wedding, and she practices here, and she uses strictly the activator technique also. So I never thought that I could ever have this optimal back health, so to speak, after my car accident, and I have not felt that great after 6 sessions with her since before the car accident, or long before that. So I am very grateful to her too, and so that's why I brought her, so that you guys can learn about activator technique if you don't know about it, since traditional or whatever, the most common chiropractics did not work for me the way it does for a lot of people. Then I became extremely involved, not then, but from when I was pregnant, with a group of mamas that I met on meetup.com, Baby Mamas of San Diego, we call ourselves. And we work out 3 days a week at the Public Training Center, with Pilates and Muay Thai fighting, and it's awesome. And they have been such a fabulous support group. So in wrapping up my story, my main message to all of you is to reach out, because we have an amazing network here. San Diego is incredible. All the different things, all the different people and resources that we have, you really cannot take advantage of them enough. So, so thank you to everybody that's here, that's been an amazing support group, and yeah, so good luck to all of you.